now we can get going. Okay, so your premiums, those are that's what you're going to pay regardless of whether you use your insurance. Okay, you're essentially paying for protection. Okay, with premiums, kind of like what the mob does, except this is legal, right? Mob comes in and says, "Hey, don't you want to pay for protection money, right?" But this one's legal. Deductibles, if you choose to use your insurance, if you end up having to use your insurance, your deductibles are what you are going to have to pay first before your insurance pays out. Okay. So in a year, let's say it was a blessed year, nothing bad happened to you whatsoever, you're not going to have to pay your deductible, but you're still going to have to pay your insurance premiums. So those are kind of just sunk costs. Okay. So with that in mind, a lot of people try to lower their premiums as much as possible. Certain ways to lower your premiums: you can increase your deductible. If your deductible is $2,000 versus $500, your premiums are going to be a lot lower. Okay. Other ways, so if you get more coverage than you need, like let's say you live off a mountain, you're a plateau in Arizona. Do you think that you're going to need flood insurance? If you live on a plateau in Arizona, probably not, right? So, you can lower your premiums by getting rid of coverages that you really don't need, or the likelihood of it happening are so low, you're willing to take that risk yourself. Remember, insurance is all about risk management. Who takes on the risk, you or your insurance company? Okay. So we talked about this on Wednesday, named perils versus open perils. I'm just going to kind of go through it fairly quickly. Which one's going to be more expensive? Which type of plan?
Open peril.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Open perils.
Yeah, open perils, right? Because they're covering everything that's not listed, right? So they tend to be more expensive. Okay, they're just going to everything listed in the policy is excluded from being covered, whereas named perils says everything listed in the policy is what we're covering, nothing more. Okay, so typical excluded perils, we mentioned this last time, so ground movement, earthquakes, things like that, you do need to buy additional coverage. And I feel sorry for the people living in North Texas and Oklahoma, because it's a risk they didn't realize and that they needed, or they were living with, and now their property is being damaged. Okay, water damage. Okay, additional flood insurance needs to be purchased. In the United States, flood insurance is subsidized by the government. Okay, because if it wasn't subsidized by the government, then people wouldn't live in certain areas, right? Like Galveston. No one would want to live in Galveston if they knew when a hurricane came in and wiped out their property, they would be on the hook for the entire rebuild. No one would do that. So the government subsidizes that. Leo, what does that sound like? When the government subsidizes something, you say it a lot in class, it starts with an S.
When they seize something, like they take away?
No, socialism. All right, government's getting involved in this market. So that is technically an element of socialism there. Okay. To other excluded perils, war, right? And now this was another instance where the government got involved, and people didn't really have a problem with the government getting involved here. So when 9/11 happened, you had a lot of damage that was caused by a terrorist activity. Buildings coming down in New York, the buildings coming down, that did property damage to surrounding areas, not to mention the life insurance and all of that. Well, a lot of insurance companies back in 2001 looked at their clause and said, hey, war is excluded. And we view the 9/11 attacks as an act of war against the United States. Therefore, we're not going to pay out. You can imagine that when that came to light, a lot of people in the United States did not appreciate that position. And so the government ended up forcing insurance companies to pay out for the damage that was done. Intentional act. So you can't purposefully damage your property expecting to collect your insurance money. That's called insurance fraud. Okay, don't do it. You'll go to jail. And then negligence, and I misspelled negligence there. I was typing far, words, but negligence. You have to mitigate, potential damages. Okay, and that's another misspelling. Preventable. I don't even know. Prevent-able. That's weird. Okay, but you have to mitigate your potential damages. If you choose not to prevent a damage that is obviously preventable, that's the same as being intentional. All right, so section 1 coverages, we'll go through these really, really quickly. Coverage A covers your dwelling, any place that people can live. Okay, your homes, vacation home, hunter's cabin, your apartment, condo, any place that people live is going to have coverage A. Okay, you do not have to currently live there though. If you have multiple homes, you can have coverage A on all of those homes. Coverage B, any other structures so that are on your property. I'm sure you are all familiar with this video.
Well, it finally happened, Zachary. Somebody burned down my she shed.
Nobody burned down your she shed, Cheryl.
Well, my she shed's on fire.
Your she shed was struck by lightning.
Zachary, is my she shed covered by State Farm?
Your she shed's covered, Cheryl.
You hear that, Victor? I'm getting a new she shed.
She shear?
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful news.
Home insurance trusted by more people than any other. State Farm.
Okay, first of all, is there any doubt in anybody's mind that he set that shed on fire? Like, look at how he's like, oh great, she's getting a new she shed. Okay, so if insurance company proved that the fire was intentional, even if they have coverage B, are they going to pay out? No. So hopefully they will not prove that he set her she shed on fire. Okay. But based on her conversation with her State Farm agent, does she have coverage B? Yeah, it's going to cover all of that. Okay.
Well,
Don't start again. Let's move on. All right. Coverage sees your personal property. So the things that are inside your home that have value to you, your computers, TVs. Sorry, dog's chewing on a toy. I just wanted to make sure he was chewing on something that was good. That's going to be coverage C. Now, things that aren't excluded, we'll start over here. Typically animals, so your pets are not going to be included in your personal property. Why are you been watching this? Okay. Motorized land vehicles used off premises. It's like your cars, okay? And so a lot of these things that are excluded from your personal property tend to be because they have other coverage on them, or they should have other coverage, okay? So your cars and things that you use off your premises, well, that should be, you should have car insurance for that, okay? Property of residences, sorry, that's a misspelling there. Property of residence, not residences, okay? So residence not related to the insurance. So if you are renting, if you have roommates, and let's say your roommate is the one that owns the home and you're just renting a room, your property is not going to be covered under your roommate's insurance for personal property. Their property will be, but yours will not. Okay. Aircraft, yeah, that's buy separate insurance for that. Okay. But even among the property that is going to be covered, there are certain limitations, right? Cash and coins, $200. Valuable papers, $1,500. Luxury wearables, watches, jewelry, furs, things like that, limited to $1,500. And of course, these numbers can change based on the policy. These are just general. Okay, watercraft trailers, so your Sea-Doo, whatever they are. Electronic equipment, $1,500. Firearms, $2,500. So people in Texas need to buy more firearm insurance because we have more guns in Texas than people. And then fine China. So, yeah, the type of silverware or plated stuff that your parents only bring out on special occasions, that's limited as well. Okay. Coverage D is your loss of use. So if you have to leave your premise, your residence because of damage, coverage D is going to help pay. You're not going to pay 100%. They're just going to pay the difference between what you would have normally spent if there had been no damage and what you're currently spending. Okay. So there's going to be some limitation to it. Okay. So our section 2 coverages are E and F, personal liability and medical payments. So E is going to pay out as long as the injury was not intentional, if you are legally liable for their injury. So you have a dog, the dog bites someone that requires stitches, coverage E will pay that injured person. Tripping on a sidewalk, you have a responsibility to protect your sidewalk, or not necessarily protect, but to make sure your sidewalk is even. Failure to do so, you're going to be liable for damages. Shotgun booby traps. If you go to the, there is a YouTube channel called Legal Eagle. It's a guy who is an attorney out of New York. And he did this one episode about, about the case of the shotgun booby trap. Okay. Long story short, this couple had a residence out in the country. They kept on getting robbed. They lived in the city. And so they set up a shotgun pointed at the door and rigged it to where when the door was opened, the shotgun would fire and blow off the aimed at the legs of the people coming in. One, it's illegal to do that. Okay, you cannot create, because imagine if a firefighter or a police officer was the one entering because they had probable cause or something, right? That's illegal. But you're going to be responsible for any damage done. Okay, so even though it's illegal, you're going to be responsible for it. Personal liability coverage, insurance companies are probably going to make the argument that this shotgun booby traps are intentional and therefore they're not going to cover it, but that may not be the case. But other hidden dangers or negligence, things that you are responsible for that cause injury, they're going to coverage E will help you pay for that, and by paying the people injured. Okay. Coverage F, medical payments. Now this doesn't, the main difference here, no one needs to be at fault over here. Okay, with coverage F. If someone just gets injured on your property, coverage F is going to help pay. Okay, so example, trampolines. How many of y'all grew up with a trampoline in your backyard? Okay, those are death traps. All right, so dangerous. Oh my goodness, dog. Okay, but let's say you have a friend coming over and they're jumping on the trampoline and they fall and hurt themselves. Okay, coverage F of your homeowner's insurance will help cover that. Slipping down the stairs. How many of y'all have walked down the stairs in socks at your home? Is that a little dangerous? Like, right? Yeah, that's gonna cover. Yeah, that's gonna coverage after will cover any damage that occurs because people slip down the stairs. Okay, so your basic forms. This is where we left off last week. Okay, so we have our basic form 1, 2, and 3. There is no basic form 1, so I don't know to tell why that is. The main difference between basic form 2 and 3, 2 is a named perils coverage. Okay, 3 is going to be an open perils. So HO3 is the most common type of policy sold in the US. Which of these do you think is going to be more expensive? Two or
HO3.
which one?
HO3.
HO3. All right, and it's more expensive because it has that open policy, open perils there. HO4 is your renter's insurance. So this is the insurance that you're most likely going to look at purchasing when you go off to college or when you get your own apartment. Renter's insurance tends to be pretty cheap, like $15 a month or so. You know, it obviously depends on what you have and what you're covering, but it's fairly affordable. So it's for people who don't own their dwelling, but they want their property inside to be protected. And it's going to have coverage C, which is personal property, as well as coverage D, loss of use. Because even though you're renting, something could cause. Dog chewing on plastic. Okay, but coverage D, even though you're renting, something could happen to your apartment and you could lose use of it. You have to find another place. Let's say your rent at your original apartment was $1,000 a month, but you can only find another place that's the cheapest place you can find is $1,300 a month. Your renter's insurance with loss of use coverage is going to pay you the difference, the $300. That makes sense, right? If nothing had happened, you would have continued to pay $1,000 a month for your rent. But because damage occurred to your apartment, you can't live there anymore, renter's insurance for a short, until the damage is fixed, will pay you the difference between your new rent and your old rent. So the $300. Okay. HO5 is your comprehensive. Okay. This tends to be the most expensive of the policies because it's an open perils, but it also covers pretty much everything. Okay. So you're going to have, and when I say most expensive, what am I talking about it having higher?
Coverage.
Well, it has higher coverage, but what is it that you're going to be paying that's going to be more expensive?
The premium?
Premiums. Okay. So when we say that a policy is more expensive or less expensive, we're typically talking about the premium that you would pay for it. Okay. So these premiums are going to be higher for HO5. Okay. And you can see it. So coverage A is your what? What's coverage A?
It's like damage to your house.
Yeah, your dwelling. Coverage B. What's coverage B?
Other property.
Other property. Coverage C.
Personal property.
Your
Personal property.
items.
Personal property. Coverage D is
Loss of use.
loss of use, right? E and F can be thrown in there too if you have that added protection. Okay. E and F can be thrown into pretty much every one here. Okay. HO6, your condo. Okay, so what's the difference between a condo and an apartment? Anybody know the difference? Okay, so apartments are going to have one owner, the owner of the apartment building, and they're going to rent out. A condo is going to have multiple owners. Each of them owns a certain room in the complex. Okay. When I lived in Austin, one of my high school friends, I ended up moving into a condo with him. So he was a smart guy, but he did not take care of things. Like he graduated our salutatorian. Okay. But his first year at going to UT, he forgot to apply to on-campus housing. And so his parents got him into a private dorm just off campus. His second year, he forgot to reapply for that private dorm. And so his parents bought him a condo in West Campus, just off campus. Yeah, his parents worked for Texas Instruments. So they were doing well. But the condo used to be an apartment. And then they chose to privatize or sell off the apartment rooms, the units. And so when they sold off those units, they became condos. Okay. So you own, when you purchase a condo, you own property, but you still have some of that commonality, common space with an apartment, right? You have to own it in good relationships with your other condo owners. So your HO6 policies are going to be similar to the HO3, like protecting your property there, but they're also going to have aspects that are related to the common grounds of the complex. Okay, so it's kind of that in between apartment and your own property. Okay. HO6s tend to have no liability protection. Okay. Because of that commonality, that common ground. That common ground. If someone gets injured in a common ground area, it's hard to figure out who's responsible for that. So HO6s will not have liability. Okay. And finally, our HO8s. This is fairly simple. It's used for historic homes. How many of y'all have been out to what's that ranch called right outside of like Needville, the George something Ranch. Mari, you know what I'm talking about? It's not the, like, I want to say George Bush, but it's not the George Bush. What is that?
I know there's Morton Ranch out there.
Yeah, this is like a historic.
George Ranch.
Okay, it's called the George Ranch Historic Park. It's out in Richmond. Okay. I remember we used to, here, I'll pull up a. Which is why there's George Ranch High School out in Richmond. Okay, George Ranch Historic Park. I remember taking a trip out here as a student. I don't remember what school I was in. But essentially, it has all these structures out here that are historic. They have, they're more valuable because of the historic nature of these homes than it would actually cost to build them. Right? So your HO8 insurance is going to cover that more value, like the historic homes. How many of y'all have been to an Astros game at Minute Maid? Anybody? Okay. When you walk there, have you noticed that there's like that old historic home near the park, and it seems like no one's living there, right? It's all fenced off. That most likely would have an HO8. The only reason I can think that it's still there is because it has some historic importance. Because otherwise, it's a complete eyesore. Like, why have it there? Okay. So, all right. Any questions over our insurances? Okay. Make sure to know the difference between these forms. So HO2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. Again, I don't know why they skipped 7. They just do. So make sure that you know the differences. Okay. Maybe create some flashcards to go over it. And then also know the different coverages here. A, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay. I will be posting a quiz on, it will drop tomorrow. So you'll have tomorrow to Wednesday to take it. And later today, I'll be posting a little worksheet to kind of go through these homeowners insurance questions. Okay. Wednesday, we'll review this a little bit and talk briefly about life insurance. We're going to have an insurance test on Friday. It's mainly going to cover health, auto, and homeowners, but there will be a couple questions, probably bonus, thrown in there for life. And so I want to cover some basics of life. Just because when you start working, some people are going to try to sell you life insurance as an investment. And really, it's a extremely poor investment. And the reason that they're selling it to you is because they get a big commission when they make sales like this. And that is my dog whining. Okay, but they make big commissions when they sell things like that. It's really the people who buy them are not benefiting from it. So they're unnecessary. Yeah. All right. No other questions? Anyone going out of town for Thanksgiving? Okay. So the way that I'm going to have the test is it's going to drop Friday, but you're going to have until Sunday to take it. Okay. So just in terms of, I'm sure other classes are putting some other tests this week. Yes. Okay. So would Sunday work, or do y'all want Monday too?
I think Monday would probably be better.
Do y'all agree Monday? Okay. Just don't forget about it, all right? Because the benefit of Monday is that you have more time to prepare. It's not as stressful, but one of the risks is that you forget about it. Okay, so just make sure that you do not forget about it. I'll have it due Monday, so it'll be Monday at midnight, or 11:59 p.m.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is there going to be like a Kahoot for this one, or?
Yeah, I'll post a review. That's part of what we'll be doing on Wednesday as well. I'm reviewing with my 7th graders today because they have a test on Wednesday. And I found a kind of a template for a Jeopardy game. So would y'all rather do Jeopardy or Kahoot?
Kahoot.
Kahoot? Okay. All right, we'll do a Kahoot then. All right, guys, I will see y'all on Wednesday if there are no other questions. We're good to go? All right, keep an eye out for the quiz and the worksheet, and make sure you do the worksheet before you do the quiz. Right? All right, see y'all later.